It's stylish.
Yeah, you look about 20 years younger. All right, producers are getting mad at me. According to Adam Schefter, Russell Wilson has told the Seahawks that he wants to play in Seattle, but if a trade were considered, the only teams he would consider going to, get ready for this, Stephen A., the Cowboys, the Saints, the Raiders, and the Bears. So, Max, serious cities right there where he could really, make his mark. Do you think Russ should stay or go?
I think he should stay. I mean, he's made his mark in Seattle. And by the way, they put a good team around him. Not a great team every year, but a good one. Better than most. Like, better than the team that the Dallas Cowboys field normally. Better than the team that the Raiders field normally. Better than the team that the Bears field normally. Saints are something else, but actually comparable. How many Super Bowls did Drew Brees win in his career? One. Well, Russell Wilson's been to more than that and won one. Look, going into this last season, I liked Seattle to win the NFC after the Jamal Adams trade. Jamal Adams got hurt. You knew it was like a hopefully bend but don't break defense, and then you add an elite piece like Adams, you think maybe that could put him over the top. Didn't work out that way. It was a bend and break defense, and Jamal Adams was hurt, and they really could never get it together on that side of the ball. But there was reason to think maybe they could. They tried to address it in a big way by bringing Adams in. Does Russell Wilson have weapons in Seattle? Oh, my God, yeah. He's got a great receiving core to throw to. Does he have an offensive line? And he threw his offensive line under the bus when he made those comments initially about how often he was hitting everything. Let me say this. Seattle was arrogant with their offensive line. Several years back, the Max Unger for Jimmy Graham trade, they trade a real good offensive lineman for a tight end who's more like a wide receiver, thinking they'll improve that way and they can just kind of draft linemen later on and coach them up. Didn't work out that way. They were unable to develop a line. And a couple of years ago, Stephen A., I was really concerned for Russell Wilson, but I've seen more resources devoted to the line since then, and I actually don't think it's the same problem that it was a couple of years ago. I think it's trending in the right direction. And Stephen A., you know what's curious to me when I look at his list of teams? How's the Bears O-line? It's horrible. Bears O-line is terrible last year. That was really the problem with the Bears. Well, I mean, the Cowboys' offensive line was great not long ago. It ain't the same anymore. This is not your slightly older cousin's Cowboys offensive line. It's a new day. So it's curious to me the teams he selected that he would approve a trade to.
Well, not all of them are that curious to me. A couple of things that we need to get out of the way. Number one, if you're Russell Wilson, here's why the Dallas Cowboys would be on your list. It's called comfort, Max Kellerman. So let me get this straight. You could be mediocre, miss the playoffs more times than you make them over the last quarter century, and still be relevant and still make dollars because you're still in the spotlight. That's not a bad deal for a football player. So let's take that into consideration because that would be one of the reasons why they would want to be a Cowboy. It certainly ain't because they're winning. That's number one. Number two, when we think about Russell Wilson in terms of whether or not he should stay or go, if he wants to go, he should go. The reality of the situation is this is a champion. This is a guy that's going to 2 Super Bowls. This is a guy that's been the star and carried the franchise on his back for at least the last 5 years. And when you look at some of the things that are transpiring, the man's been sacked 394 times in his career. That's one of the top 2 in terms of being sacked. He's been hit over 1,100 times. And this is the star of your franchise who's been basically abused in that regard. And he walks into a room and he tries to make suggestions onto how you can avoid getting him hit more often, and you literally let him walk out of the room disgusted because you dismissed him. That's very, very disrespectful, and that's the kind of thing that should make him say, I want the hell up out of here. Now, in terms of the teams that he should go to, let me say this to you. Easily for me, it's the New Orleans Saints. The New Orleans Saints, although their offensive line needs to be improved a little bit, their defense has improved vastly over the years. Michael Thomas is an all-world receiver. All right. Alvin Kamara is an all-world player. All right. So when you look at it from that standpoint, and you've got those 2 cornerstones as a part of your franchise with Sean Payton calling plays, and then you've got a backup like a guy like Taysom Hill that would be in the mix that you could utilize, with run options and things of that nature, read options. The bottom line is that you can find a way to be productive, efficient, winning football games while also insulating Russell Wilson from the level of abuse that he's been accustomed to experiencing in Seattle. I think the Saints are an easy call here. I don't think the Cowboys should be a part of the mix. I don't think the Raiders are ready yet. They shouldn't be a part of the mix, even though obviously I think Russell Wilson would take the Raiders to the playoffs. I think the Bears obviously is something that you can't dismiss because of their defense and playing in Chi-Town. The fact of the matter is they could do some things with Russell Wilson as well, but the ideal landing spot for him would be the New Orleans Saints. They're in the Dome. Drew Brees is probably going to retire. Sean Payton is still there. Michael Thomas, Alvin Kamara is still there. And the defense is vastly improved, and they are accustomed to winning their damn selves. I think it's easy to surmise that the Saints would be the ideal landing spot for Russell Wilson based on the list that he gave.
Of the teams that he listed, apparently that was reported that he would approve a trade to, it's easily the Saints, for the reasons you just mentioned, not to mention Emmanuel Sanders, and they're a very well-balanced team, and he'd have a real shot to win the Super Bowl. But I think he has a real shot to win the Super Bowl in Seattle. You know, the defense was really the issue this year to me, much more than the offensive line. And by the way, if Russell Wilson is tired of getting chased around and hit, he's got to get rid of the ball a little quicker, too. Like, that's actually a fair criticism of Russell Wilson. No one's perfect. He's great. But he holds the ball a little, let Russ cook. A lot of that is, keeping his eyes down the field, evading defenders, and coming up with the big play one way or another. But there are consequences to that. I wouldn't deny that the Saints are a great landing spot for him, but I think he's in an excellent spot where he is. In terms of the Cowboys, Stephen A., I got to say, the lower expectations, you can be mediocre, that ain't for Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson wants to be the best ever. He's intensely competitive. That's why I'm curious about the Cowboys. For a guy who wants input, I don't know, you think you're going to get it with the Cowboys? For a guy who wants an offensive line, Cowboys don't have that anymore. And for a guy who wants to win Super Bowls, when was the last time the Cowboys even really been seriously in the hunt for one? That's why I'm surprised at the list. It seems incongruous. The Saints make sense for the points you bring up. Why do the Raiders make sense? Why do the Cowboys make sense? And what do they have in common, really? I don't get it.
Well, listen, here's what I would say to you. I mean, you can look at it from that perspective, and I get where you're coming from, but here's the part that I think you're missing. It's similar to Deshaun Watson. There's something that, it's connected to football, but it transcends football to such a degree. Why all of a sudden would Russell Wilson have this attitude? You've disrespected him. It's not about the football team. I understand what your point. Your points about the football team are valid. As far as I'm concerned, Seattle Seahawks are a playoff team. They could contend for a Super Bowl. We get all of that. DK Metcalf is there with Lockett and those boys. Of course they could contend for a Super Bowl. And Pete Carroll's coaching them, and we know he's a damn good coach. He's a championship coach. My point, however, is if Russell Wilson feels this way, you have done something to disrespect him. And so I think that's the question that really, listen, and let's call this what it is. All right, let me ruffle some feathers. Not that I give a damn, but let me be very, very clear about this. Dak Prescott, his contract situation, it's not about the money. It's that we want you for more years and all of this other stuff. Every other organization in the NFL understands you got to take care of your quarterback. Jerry Jones is taking care of everybody else but his quarterback. Deshaun Watson, Houston. He feels signs $160 million, over $100 million guaranteed over 4 years, crying, with gratitude because of what the Houston Texans did in terms of investing in him and showing their faith and trust in him, et cetera, et cetera. Less than a year later, he wants nothing to do with them. In a league rife with parity, mind you, you can stink one year and be a contender the very next in the National Football League. That's what makes it so special. Now we have a situation with Russell Wilson, who's been there for years. Who's gone to 2 Super Bowls, who's won a Super Bowl title, who's been a model citizen, who's carried the franchise on his back, et cetera, et cetera. I'm sorry, is it just me? I'm seeing 3 black quarterbacks feeling disrespected. Yeah. Is it just me? Nope. Is it just me?
Let me just add one thing to that, Stephen A., that I find interesting. Max, let me jump in here really quick, because when we're talking about Russell Wilson and we're talking about Deshaun Watson, besides the fact that they're both black quarterbacks, they both have taken a lot of hits and they haven't been protected at the line. That's another piece that hasn't been mentioned. And Max,
and when, big time,
you say, I don't get what's Yeah, and also, Max, when you said I don't get what's in common, I do. These are all major cities with solid football teams. He's picking major markets.
Yeah, I don't know, but he's left off a lot of bigger markets than the ones he's included. And I wouldn't say all of them are really solid football teams. Actually, I think the Dallas Cowboys have a lot of problems. I think the Raiders are solid. I think the Saints are excellent. And there was one more that's slipping my mind right now.
Bears.
And the Bears have a defense, but they have no offensive line. Like, if he's worried about getting chased around, oh, my God. Let me say something about what you brought up, Stephen A. I think you're right. I think there's that component to it. And I also think this is one of the reasons for so many years the owners have tried to stand on principle and even sometimes hurt themselves to prove a point to labor, to prove a point to the players, like Le'Veon Bell. Yeah, we want you back, but hey, we'll lose you to prove a point, right? And the point is now that franchise quarterbacks, if you are a great quarterback, you're calling the shots. This is the nightmare scenario for the owners in the league.
Just a question to end the segment, and it's a rhetorical one just for the audience, not you two. Houston, Dallas, Seattle, franchises. These guys are pretty elite quarterbacks. Some would debate that about Dak Prescott as whether or not he's very good to great or whatever. But these are not scrubs. They're not only black men who are stars at their position, who represent and show up and produce. They're also model citizens. And in the aftermath of all of this that has transpired with social justice issues and everything else, with a nation of folks that don't look like me talking about we want to listen, we want to hear, et cetera, et cetera. You're looking in the National Football League, and we all know the problems that the black quarterback has had in the past instead of receiving the level of respect they so richly deserved. And here we are in the year 2021, and this is what we're seeing right now. Somewhere along the way, somebody needs to answer that question for us. Why those three guys? What's the problem? I'm just saying.
No, that's fair. Max, can I ask you a quick question here before we go to break? Who would you rather have? Let's look at our team. We're both big fans of the New York Football Giants. At quarterback, if we could get Deshaun Watson today or Russell Wilson, who do you think we have a better shot at a Super Bowl with this season?
Deshaun Watson is at least Russell. I think Deshaun's at least Russell's equal right now, and he's a lot younger. And I would say, Stephen A., I second what you're saying. I think there are questions that need to be asked. I will say that Tom Brady, who's obviously not a black quarterback and also not young, also felt disrespected where he was and chose a new location and succeeded in a big way. And I think part of what has happened to the league, and we'll get into this a little bit later.
I don't hear Max.
Okay, I can't hear Max right now. Stephen A., I don't know if you can, so I'm going to ask you to answer the same question. Who would you rather have, Deshaun or Russ?
Me personally, I would rather have Deshaun Watson. There's no knock against Russell Wilson whatsoever. I love him, and I think he's great. I just think that Deshaun has ascended to such a level that I don't see anything Russell Wilson doing that Deshaun Watson cannot do, and he's younger. So I agree with Max on that.
All right, we'll leave it there. We'll have much more on the quarterbacks a little bit later in the show with some of our analysts. Coming up next, though, guys, we're going to go to the
volunteer program. Drink a seltzer, help save a river.
That's a grown man that's not yet 21 years old.
I'm healthy and competing. I'm just a different kind of player.
The Pelicans lost a close one in Milwaukee last night, and right now we discuss it with the face of the New Orleans Pelicans. We welcome an all-star to the show, the one and only Zion Williamson. Zion, how does that sound? All-star, huge congrats on an amazing season, and thank you so much for being with us this morning.
Thank you for having me, and it sounds great. It's a huge honor, and I'm just glad I can be a part of the game.
You're averaging
Much
25.
All right, before we get in,
I'm sorry, Molly. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, real quick, I just want to get in about last night, Stephen A., and then you guys can take over. But your coach talked, Zion, about getting hacked last night. Just talk to me about your thoughts on how you've been officiated.
My stepfather taught me old school. I'm never going to be one of those dudes to, say something to the refs. I just won't. Hopefully things will change. But until then, I'm just going to keep playing.
I'm watching you right now. You're averaging 25 a game on better than 61% shooting, almost 62%, obviously incredibly efficient. When you look at your game right now, as young as you are, where do you feel you are, and how much improvement do you think you need to make specifically?
I feel like I'm in a good spot for, being 20. And I do have a lot of room for improvement. The improvement will definitely come. But until my team starts winning, I always have room to improve.
Zion, very few 20-year-olds who ever lived has played at the level that you're playing on right now already. And you're getting press now recently for your ball handling, your passing, you're initiating the offense at times. Stephen A. asked you specifically, what do you think you need to improve on? Because you've improved passing, your ball handling's been there, but that looks like it's getting better. Your court awareness, all those kind of things, vision. What is it that you feel when you look at your game? That, I want to get better at that.
I'm 20 years old right now. What I want to get better at is everything. I really haven't mastered anything at the age of 20, so my goal is to just improve at everything. Can't tell y'all all my stuff now.
All your secrets.
Zion, hey, Molly, real quick, Zion, let me just tell you something. It doesn't matter if you tell people or not. There's nothing anyone can do about it. It's not like they're going to stop you. You can let the secret out. Sorry, Molly.
No, it's okay. You're something special. And Zion, you're so much fun to watch. And let me just say this. We've all been stuck at home, and it's been really great to see your game. So no pressure here, Zion, but what's the deal? Are we going to see you in the dunk contest?
I don't know yet. I don't know yet.
Come on, Zion. You're on First Take. This is the time to announce it to America with Stephen A. Smith and Max Kellerman. We're going to see you, right?
Who knows? Who knows? Still thinking about it.
Killing me.
Zion, I'm looking at the Pelicans, and I like a lot of the talent that y'all got on the squad, but you're 14 and 18, you're 4 games under 500. I expected y'all to be better defensively than y'all have been. Offensively, y'all are incredibly potent, but a Stan Van Gundy team, I expected them to be better defensively, and I have no doubt it'll get to that point. When you look at this team right now, how do you feel about your team? I know you're young, you're only 20, you ain't gonna turn 21 until July, but the bottom line is you're the face of this franchise. Can you tell me how you're feeling about this team as presently constructed right now? Talk to me about your thoughts about your teammates.
I'm feeling really good about my team and my teammates and coach. We don't have the record we want, obviously, right now, but, we're almost there. I can just feel it. We've been in a lot of close games that could have went either way, but some of them didn't go our way. A few went our way, but, we're right there. Once we figure out a few more minor things, I think we'll be fine.
Zion, no one's ever seen a player quite like you. You're unique. What are your goals for your career? What do you hope to accomplish in the NBA?
My goals are to win. My mom always taught me when you win, you get all the other things that come along with winning. So my main goal is, trying to be a winner.
I listen, before I ask this last question, because it's about some competition in the Western Conference, I just want to put on the record, if the ping pong balls had dropped a certain way, if a different envelope had been picked up, you would have been a New York Knick. And it's a damn shame. You understand? It just hurts right there. It just hurts, damn it. But anyway, Zion, we've been watching basketball take place in the Western Conference, and obviously we saw what Denver did last year in the postseason before bowing out to the Lakers. We're looking at Utah this year. Utah looks sensational. We know that Anthony Davis is hurt with the Los Angeles Lakers. As you scour your conference, we've been talking about the Utah Jazz a lot. Is it really about the Lakers and Anthony Davis, or do we look at a team like Utah and we say to ourselves, my Lord, they have arrived and they put everybody on notice? As a player in the Western Conference, how are you feeling about what you're seeing from other teams, specifically somebody like Utah?
Okay, I guess I'll start with Utah. A team like Utah, they're a very great team. They've been playing so well lately, and the whole league has noticed. And they do it night in and night out. But as far as the rest of the West, I don't think anybody's just going to, bow out like that. So, everybody's mindset is, this is basketball. We can get a win any night. So nobody's just sitting here thinking, oh, one team has it on lock. Everybody's mindset is to go out there and try to win as many games as possible.
Zion, two quick things before I let you roll. First of all, you got a big game, but you got an even bigger smile. So when I asked you about that dunk contest, you're kind of like my husband, this big toothy grin, and I think you're a bad liar. So I expect to see you in the dunk contest, and I think you're just holding out on us. But we shall. I'll have to wait and see. But can you see us right now? Can you see Stephen A. Max and I? Do you have return video or no?
I can see all of you.
You do? Okay, awesome. I'm just wondering, so Stephen A's been spending a lot of time out in L.A. I call him L.A. Steve. There's multiple personalities with Stephen A. Smith. I just want to know how you feel about this kind of cool, casual look on him, because I think he wore it for you. The 20-year-old, the superstar coming on the show. Are you into it?
Man. Well, one, he didn't wear it for me. But two, it's a nice casual work look. I'm not mad at you. Not mad at you at all.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
No problem.
No. Thank you, sir.
Oh, my goodness. All right. Zion, appreciate you. Thank you for the time, and keep doing your thing. So fun to watch.
Your thing. Good luck, bro.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, y'all.
Do not pay good players great player money. Dak Prescott is a good player. If the Cowboys pay him $40 million a year, it would be a grave mistake. They need to look at a situation like the Rams or like the Philadelphia Eagles and go, uh-oh, can we learn from maybe paying a guy too much money, so to speak? Dak Prescott deserves good player money.
I love watching Dan watching himself. That's really what this segment should be. I like when you gave a hot take, Dan Orlovsky. You made sure to wear a good outfit because you knew that was going to get played around the networks. Let's just get right into it. Stephen A., go for it. You agree?
Of course I don't. Of course I don't agree. And let me educate Mr. Dan Orlovsky about something. I want to talk about you personally, Dan Orlovsky, because let your brother Stephen A. Smith come in here and help you out a little bit. You are an exceptional football mind and an exceptional football analyst. When contract negotiations come up, I want you to know that very clip right there could be used against you. And I'm going to tell you why it could be used against you. Because essentially you've ignored the number one rule when it comes to negotiations. You get what the market will allow you to get. That's what the hell your value is. It ain't you looking at somebody or somebody looking at you and defining what's good or what's great. It's about what the market allows. Now, we are living in a world where Russell Wilson is making 35, Aaron Rodgers is making 34, you've got Deshaun Watson making 39, you've got Patrick Mahomes making 45, and the Dallas Cowboys are in a situation because they franchised Dak Prescott last year. If you franchise him this year, it's going to cost $37 million against you, and obviously if you think about trying to do it next year, which you won't do because it's going to cost you $50 million, which gives him all the leverage in the world. So because of that leverage, Dan Orlovsky, now we've got a situation here. If you're willing to pay him $37 million, you trying to tell me instead of paying him $37 million for 1 year, you don't want to take care of him and add about $2 or $3 more million to the mix so you can take care of him for the next 4 or 5 and be done with it and have peace and harmony within your franchise at the quarterback position? That would be the smart way to go about doing things. So you could talk about Dak Prescott being good. I think he's better than good. You're 42-27 as a starter. You've got a near 3-to-1 turn TD to interception ratio. When you're on the football field, you've taken him to the playoff twice. You've won a playoff game, okay? In your 4 years as a starter, up until you got injured last year in Game 5. You hadn't missed a single game. It was back page news when you missed a practice. When he wasn't in the lineup, we saw all of a sudden the offensive line looked even worse. Andy Dalton got exposed. Ezekiel Elliott didn't look like himself. Amari Cooper, Michael Gallup, CeeDee Lamb, and those boys, as well as talented as they are and as much as they can play, they didn't look as formidable without him on the football field. And don't even get me started with leadership in the locker room or lack thereof. And so when you take all of those things into consideration and you consider the fact that we're talking about America's team and you understand the cachet that comes along with it, you take care of the one that you've got, the one that's produced for you, and that is the route you go into. It ain't about, oh, he's very good, but you don't play him great money. Well, guess what? To the Dallas Cowboys, he's pretty damn great because they flat out stink without him. And that is where the marketability comes from. And that is why you give Dak Prescott the money and say, I'm done with it. Whether you think he's worth it or not. If it ain't 40, it's 38. So damn what? If you got to lock him up and get rid of this problem for the next 3 or 4 years.
Now, I got to respond to what you just said first, Stephen A., how you started before I get to you, Dan. Number one, you don't have to be irrational just because the market's irrational. And I think that's been my point about quarterbacks. Quarterbacks are overpaid. There is a cap there so that people like Dan will come on TV and say, hey, do you want to win Super Bowls or you want to be the highest paid? All a cap does, a hard cap, is funnel money from the players to the owners. And because of that system, quarterbacks take too much of a percentage of the cap. Now, Dan, I believe your point is Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady obviously still showed it. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes, Deshaun Watson, they're worth it. But you better be sure your guy is worth it before you give him that money. And even if it is, it could be a handicap to you the way it is Russell Wilson in Seattle. Okay, that's one. But here's why actually Stephen A. is right in this case, and you're wrong, Dan, because I had the exact same point of view you do now a year ago. A year ago, I had the same point of view as you. 3 things happened, okay? That means that Jerry Jones has lost the negotiation. It played out. Jones was taking a certain position. He has now lost, and it's just a matter of time. It's not a matter of if. It's just he's going to have to come forward and say, Dak beat me. Here are the 3 things that happened. 1, Andy Dalton was much worse than Dak. Like, I thought Dak is good, not great. Maybe he's on his way to being great. Andy Dalton's a good backup. There was no comparison, that offense, when Dalton was in and Dak was out. That's 1. That gives Dak the leverage Stephen A. is talking about. 2, no one else in the division has a quarterback. They'd be the only franchise with a real star quarterback, like a seriously above-average quarterback. That gives them a huge opportunity in the next couple of years to host playoff games. If you sign Dak, you have a really good chance to have home playoff games every year in the next several years. That's 2. And 3, to Stephen A.'s point, the franchise tag is $37 million. Next year, it's over 50, and you got to pay it all in 1 year. It's a cap hit. So really, what this is, it's true. We all know what this is. It's 3 years around 120. The Wentz signing was a mistake. I thought so at the time. It proved to be a mistake. The Goff signing was a mistake. I thought so at the time. It proved to be a mistake. I thought signing Dak to the same deal would have been a mistake a year ago. At this point, things have changed. The cap's going to go up. Quarterbacks are making more. You are terrible without Dak. You're good with him. You're going to have to pay him.
All right, I think Max makes a lot of good points. Now, first of all, Stephen A., when you use the market, Max's points are great. I'm going to use the analogy of real estate, right? If I want to go buy a house, and I'm just going to use random numbers here, okay? Let's say my net worth is $1 million. That's a lot of money. Well, I want to go buy this house, and the market dictates that it's $800,000. Well, I want to buy it, but it's not worth $800,000, but the market tells me it is. Is that a smart investment by me? Because then I don't have any money to do anything else. All I'm going to do is be house poor. I got the house that I wanted, and the market dictated that it should cost me that much money. I can't do anything else. So just because the market and he's the next guy up does not make it smart business sense for the team or the player. Max, you mentioned, and that's been my point all along, the biggest question is, what does Dak Prescott want? Here's the thing. Everybody's like, oh my gosh, you talk like Dak Prescott's a bum. No, I don't. I talk like Dak Prescott is a good quarterback. I have never said anything other than Dak Prescott's a good quarterback. I want somebody, whether it's either of you two, Molly, someone at home, to tell me when Dak has been great. when he's elevated. Because, Stephen A., you point the win-loss record and the stats. Absolutely. When your quarterback's cheap, you can spend a lot of money elsewhere. That helps the quarterback play well. It helps you win games. Outside of 2016, that's 5 years ago. The last 4 years, they're 29 and 25. That's good, right? They average 23 points a game. That's good. So what does Dak want? Does Dak want to be the highest paid quarterback in football? Yes, the way he's business sensed that, he's earned that right then. So go ahead and do that. But understand, you're not going to win doing that. It's almost impossible. Look at what happened in Seattle. Max, you referenced Philadelphia and Los Angeles. How do the Cowboys not become those two teams 2 years from now? How do they focus on not doing that? So what do they want?
Short-term deal, 3 years.
My next question would be this. Once you determine or decide to pay him great player money, that Deshaun, Rodgers, Mahomes, that world money, I need someone to tell me if they are 100% confident that the Cowboys can win, like legit win, NFC title, Super Bowl, and they believe that Dak will carry a subpar roster, because that's what happens to your roster. You mentioned Andy Dalton. Yes, Dak is better than Andy Dalton. We all know that, but by a significant margin, because he's one of the top 10, 12 starting quarterbacks in the NFL. That offense was absolutely decimated. I think the division point is very good, that you can feel confident winning a division. But at the end of the day, this comes down to, he has been good. Point to me the time, outside of the rookie year, guys, 5 years ago, it happened, no doubt. Point to me the time you're like, oh my gosh, that is a stretch of football when Dak has been absolutely great.
Dan Orlovsky, may I interject, please? Let me be very, very clear. Number one, if you recall, when Dak Prescott, other than the 17 points they scored in the opening loss to the Los Angeles Rams to start the season, they scored 40, 31, 38. In the game he got hurt, they dropped 37.
Don't go there. Don't go there. I'm going to bury that point, Stephen A. I'm going to bury it.
Wait a minute. My point to you is this. When you look at the Dallas Cowboys and we talk to them, what do we rave about when we talk about the Dallas Cowboys? We say that Jerry Jones is a brilliant businessman. I thought it was about winning football games, because being a brilliant businessman and being worth $5 billion as a franchise, that hasn't helped them win. A matter of fact, it's just made it more glaring that they lose. So we know they get headlines, and we know they get notoriety, and we know that they got the star on their helmets and they playing the billion-dollar playpen. But that hasn't transferred into victories, okay? With Dak Prescott on the football field, if that gives you your best chance to win, that also helps elevate his stature. And then, by the way, this is the National Football League we're talking about, so you know this better than me, Dan Orlovsky. Maybe it's not just literally about the money. Maybe he wants the money, but then he wants the license to restructure. He wants the license for you to come to him and ask him to restructure his deal or whatever. This is the National Football League. It's not like it is with the NBA or maybe even Major League Baseball, where they pay you it. That's what your money is. That's what you're getting. We'll talk next time it's time for negotiation. No, in the National Football League, they can sign you to $160 million. They can sign you to $40 million a year. And then they can come to you at a later date and say, could you restructure? Because we're trying to do this, we're trying to do this, we're trying to do that. The point is, you might have a situation, because of what I highlighted in terms of how some of these quarterbacks are being treated. You may want to be in a position where they have to come to you and they have to cultivate a relationship with you and make you at least somewhat of a partner in the business dealings that they're exercising, because the more money they pay you, obviously they have to deal with you, and you have to be accountable with the situation as well, as opposed to you being franchised on one-year deals or anything like this. We sign you to a long-term deal, but guess what? If we want to do certain things, now we got to come to you, which means to some degree you get to dictate what the organization does moving forward to facilitate winning. These are all things he could be thinking about, and you know that. So why not? Why shouldn't he want to be in that position? That's what I'm talking about.
Now, first of all, people I'm saying Dak should get like the 34, 35, 36 world. There's a big difference between the 40 to 42 world. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying you pay him 21. Okay, I get your point and understanding that teams will come back to the player and say we'll restructure. Dan. But it all comes down to what. Here's the thing. you pointed to the numbers to start this season when he did start, those 5 starts, okay? This is the point that I was going to rip off. In those the first halves of those football games, Dak threw for 4 touchdowns and he had 4 turnovers. Okay, so like let's not pretend like they were building these massive leads and all of a sudden everything fell apart.
But the offense was really good with Dak.
And then the second halves, when they were down multiple scores, threw for a bunch of touchdowns and 1,000 yards. Okay,
wait, Dan.
Those numbers and stats look the way they do.
Dan, the time to sign Dak to an upper middle class quarterback contract was 2 years ago.
Might have been a year ago. 2 years ago.
The time to sign him to the numbers you're talking about was a year ago. The problem now is, and where Stephen A. is actually right about this right now, the franchise tag has him at 37 this year. It all counts against the cap. Next year it'll be 53 or 54. They can't afford it. So what they're faced with, if you're Dak and you go, well, you don't sign me now, why would I take even 40 next year? Because now once you're a free agent, you're opened up to whatever market forces. They're not truly free because there's a cap. But every team in the league that wants a good quarterback is going to be in on the bidding. And believe me, he'll get at least 40 next year. So Jerry knows this. He knows he's been beat. He overplayed his hand here. He is going to sign Dak, and it's going to be the contract that Dak wants at this point. My prediction, 3 years and very close to $120 million.
Okay, but that goes back to my initial point. What do you want? Because Greeny did a great piece this morning. There's no player in the NFL, I think, over the last 3 or 4 years has made more money than Kirk Cousins. So yes, if that is when you get drafted into the NFL, every player's goal is to get to that second contract. We know that's happening for Dak Prescott. He learned that. So then what is the next goal? Is it to just sit here and say, well, I beat the franchise tag system, I beat the financial system, and I got more money than anybody? That's fine, but don't expect to win then. That's my point. Do not expect to get to the NFC title game or to get to the Super Bowl. Or do you want to sit there and say, I'm going to get a ton of money because I earned it.
Should they expect to win in Dallas? Stephen A. Let me just lob this up for Stephen A., please.
Take less money to keep our team together.
Dan, please let me lob this up for Stephen A. Stephen A., should Dak have any faith that the Cowboys will field a Super Bowl championship caliber team if he takes less money?
Please, he knows better. That's the bottom line. And here's the deal. At the end of the day, you can sign him to the dollars. And then you just have to go to him to restructure when you want to do something in the future, and he'd have to be complicit in your dealings. Easy. That's all. That's it. It seems like they don't want Dak to have cachet. It's clearly, according to everybody, it's not about the money. Jerry Jones has already offered them the money, but he wants to control the amount of years. Excuse me?
Constantly restructuring kills your cap, especially at the number that you guys are talking about when it comes to Dak.
Oh, Dan Orlovsky, have you not been paying attention to Dallas? Dallas Cowboys, football-wise, have been dead for a long time. I mean, they've already been dead. They've already been dead, okay? They've already been dead. Or at least comatose. Oh, it's going to kill the cap. Hey, ain't nothing else working. Nothing else working.
You know what I feel like right now, guys? I feel like when I've been binge watching a really good Netflix series and it's over and I'm sad, like I'm going to miss the characters. That's how I feel right now. I don't even want this to end. I put in my DoorDash order. It was going to be upstairs during the commercial break, and I was really chilling on a Friday. And now, don't you worry about it.
The jokes today, all day, all morning.
It's not even jokes, though. It's serious. It's the truth, but I'll take it. Hey, Dan, KD, James Harden. Our coverage begins with NBA Countdown, Maria, Jalen, The Truth, Paul Pierce, and Jay Will. All-Stars Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons were dominant in a rout of the Dallas Mavericks last night. Embiid had 23 and 9, while Simmons had 15 and 7 for the team with the best record in the Eastern Conference. Doc Rivers has these boys playing. Stephen A., are Embiid and Simmons among the elite duos in the NBA? Have they finally arrived, living up to their potential?
They have not arrived. I don't recall the Philadelphia 76ers making a deep playoff run. A lot of people can do stuff in the regular season. They're great talents, no question about it. We all know how I feel about Ben Simmons. I think he's a jump shot away from being LeBron James Part 2, okay? And Joel Embiid, as Max has pointed out, is the best big man in basketball. There's no question that these guys are sensational in that regard. But I'm sorry, last time I saw the Philadelphia 76ers, they were getting swept in the first round. Coach got fired. Doc Rivers arrived. So did Seth Curry. Tobias Harris is playing out of his mind right now. Arguably should have been an all-star. Okay? We get all of that. You got something to prove. You got to show up. Kevin Durant's a two-time champion. Kyrie's a champion. James Harden has led the league in scoring the last 3 years. And even though he hasn't been the same in the postseason, he's no scrub. And right now, he's arguably the best player in basketball the way that he has been playing. So I look at that. I look at LeBron James, title. I look at Anthony Davis, champion. That's what I see. Even with Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic, look at how they ball. Damian Lillard, C.J. McCollum, once he gets back. When you talk about a dynamic duo, I know what their talent says. But when you want to be in that conversation, it's about what you do in the postseason. And I love the Philadelphia 76ers. Remember, I covered the team for many years, covering it for the Philadelphia Inquirer in Philadelphia for 17 years. Okay? I've been covering the NBA. In 10 years, I was covering that team. Love them. Still know a lot of people within the organization. They know where the hell I stand. These brothers can ball. They're big time. I get it. 19-4 with them on the floor together. Oh, that's nice. It's real good. Bravo. Bravo. When the playoffs begin? Playoffs begin in May. Am I going to see the Sixers playing in June? I better. Call me then. I want to hear nothing about Embiid and Ben Simmons. I know they big time. I know they are. But what I'm saying is big time talent demands big time results. And I ain't saying anything to them that Doc Rivers hasn't told them. They know. We'll see.
Well, what you're talking about is the coaching and the role players. They got the coach now. They got the role players too. And it's fair. It's fair for you to say your criteria, your litmus test is postseason success. They can't play in the postseason right now. We got to wait to see.
But they have.
Fair.
They've had
but if you're asking me,
years.
If you're asking, well, they didn't have the role players, they didn't have the coach. If you're asking me, are they elite? The answer is yes. Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons have become an elite duo. How many duos are better than them in the league? The Nets got a triple. That's the best, right? And if you said the two best are KD and Harden, that's even better. If you want to say that LeBron and AD are even better, I agree with you if they're both healthy. That's right. But look around the league at duos we consider elite, or the next thing to it, Simmons and Embiid are better than them. Lillard and McCollum when they're healthy, when McCollum's healthy. Simmons and Embiid better than those two. It's a better duo. Look at the backcourt in D.C. even right now, and they've been on a little bit of a roll. If you said Westbrook and Bradley Beal, that's an elite backcourt. Simmons, you'd rather have Simmons and Embiid as just a duo. If you looked at the Suns' backcourt, I think you could say Chris Paul and Devin Booker. But if that's not elite, that's the next thing to it. Rather have Embiid and Simmons. In fact, even Jamal Murray and Jokic, I don't know that they're better than Embiid and Simmons. I might put Embiid and Simmons as the third best duo in the league. Sure. That's elite to me. Sure. There are 30 teams. Your top 10%, your top 3. Mm-hmm. Stephen A., here's the bottom line. Embiid right now, season ended right now, he's the MVP. He's been the best offensive player, best defensive player. Right. Team is leading the conference. But here's the thing about Ben Simmons people are sleeping on. He has created more open looks from three since he got in the league than any other player. If you look at what he's been doing offensively last, 8, 10 games, he has been an elite player. No, he doesn't shoot, but he's been an elite offensive player, incredibly efficient, setting up teammates, scoring, doing whatever he needs to do. And that's only half the story with Simmons. Simmons is like a shutdown corner. Simmons' defense, you see when they played Portland, when he was on Lillard, Lillard is not Lillard. When he was on Doncic last night, Derek Bodner of The Athletic had it. You know, he had the stats. I forgot what they were. Doncic was getting nothing. When Lillard and Doncic were guarded by anyone else, they were themselves. But when Simmons was on them, they were less than ordinary. They weren't good offensive players. Think of the defense, too. That is two absolutely elite defenders, maybe 1 and 2 in the league right now. And on offense, they're a juggernaut. That's elite.
Well, first of all, I must confess, you annoy me. I hate listening to you talk about Ben Simmons. I'm tired of you repeating like no one knows that he's an elite defender. Every damn body knows that, okay?
Hold on.
We don't need to regurgitate that same comment.
Hold on. Is this coming from the guy who tells me Stephen Clay is the greatest shooting backcourt ever?
Be quiet. Well, I said the greatest shooter since mankind. That's what I said about Steph Curry, okay?
Well, tell me something I don't know.
That's worth notice. And, well, a lot of people don't think the greatest shooter since mankind. I do. But here's the deal. They think he's the greatest shooter in the game probably ever. Here's the deal. Max Kellerman, you're the guy that doesn't value the regular season. Molly, correct me if I'm wrong. It's Max that doesn't value. Hold on, not only do you not value the regular season, you have sat up there and said, excuse me, I don't think the MVP should be about the regular season. The MVP shouldn't be named until the postseason is over. So let me get this straight. You sat up there and said the regular season ain't about much and that the MVP shouldn't be granted until the postseason is over, but you're sitting up here and you're anointing them when I got a sweep in the first round to fall back on. And oh, by the way, when you talked about what they were lacking in terms of they didn't have the right coach, they didn't have the right role players, I recall the season before last, Jimmy Butler being on that Philadelphia 76ers team. I recall a 4 bounce before dropping in by Kawhi Leonard. That is what it took to get the Sixers out of the playoffs against Toronto because they were in Game 7 of a conference semifinals and about to go to the conference finals. So when you talk about what they haven't accomplished, you're saying they didn't have enough. You're implying they didn't have enough. That year they did, but they didn't get it done.
Stephen A., has Embiid ever played like this?
Because Ben Simmons, excuse me.
Eyeball test. You've been watching a lot of basketball. You ever seen him in this shape?
Embiid has not played like this. No, he hasn't.
All right, so it's new. This is something new.
No, what isn't new is that Ben Simmons is doing what he's been doing. He's been an elite defender. He can't shoot. He won't shoot. That's it. He can finish at the basket. He can run a team. He can play the point, but he won't shoot. And he's going to have to give me more than 15 a game in order for the Philadelphia 76ers to get out of the Eastern Conference, in my opinion. That's what I believe.
That's fair. I said we'll find out in the playoffs. They can't play the playoffs yet. If Ben Simmons could shoot, Embiid and Simmons would be the best pair in the league, period.
I agree.
But even without him shooting, they're elite.
No. Listen, you're the guy. I had to teach you this. Giannis is the best player in the world.
I was hoping you wouldn't bring that up.
And then 4 days later, he's number 5 because I kept telling you he can't shoot.
Now,
this is a couple of years ago. And I'm telling you again, Ben Simmons, if he doesn't shoot the ball from the perimeter, it's going to compromise the 76ers,
now,
in
Molly,
my opinion.
Just a little window into what it means to debate on this show. I had to consider, do I bring up the fact that some of this is speculation, that it backfired with Giannis? Nah, let him bring that up if he wants. I'm not going to give that one to him. That is absolutely true. Some of this is speculation. I don't know how it works in the playoffs this year. But let me tell you what I suspect. Because of Doc Rivers, because of Seth Curry, because of the shooters that Daryl Morey put on this team, that the elite duo are going to look much better in the eyes of the public when the playoffs are over this year than they have in the past.
Molly, I'll go as far as to say this. The Sixers are so talented, so exceptionally well coached. Embiid is playing like the best player in the world right now, him and Harden, all right? And Ben Simmons is no joke. If the Philadelphia 76ers fall shy of the conference finals or lose to anyone other than Brooklyn in the postseason, it will be a colossal disappointment. There is no team that should beat the 76ers other than the Brooklyn Nets.
Fair enough. Max, what you say can be held against you in the court of law here. Don't forget that we're active listeners, but we love you, Max. All right, when we come back here on First Take, regardless of meeting his new Deshaun Watson reportedly met with new Texans head coach David Culley last Friday and informed him that he has no intention on suiting up for the team again. Watson has been unhappy with the way the organization has operated in recent years, and he's asked for a trade. The Texans have told interested teams that they do not intend to trade Watson, who just last summer signed a 4-year, $156 million contract extension. Max, I want to start with you here. Do you think it's good for NFL players to be flexing their power here and starting to use their leverage to determine their future and their career path?
I do. I think it makes the league more interesting. I mean, think about what we're talking about right now. It gives us things to talk about. It gives fans things to speculate about and to have fun with. And I think changes of scenery are good and exciting for sports. More than that, though, I think this was the inevitable byproduct of the fact that people love offense. You know, why do I say that? Because for years, this is not how it was in the NFL. But because the fans want offense, ratings go up with offense, the rules changes consistently have been not only to protect the quarterback, but to make his job easier, to make it harder to cover the wideouts. Innovation on the offensive side. They realize the return on investment when you hand it to a running back is more or less always the same. But when in the passing game, it can increase. Michael Lewis, right, with the blind side points this out. And so through the years, increasingly, the importance of the quarterback has increased to the point where if you're great, not if you're just anybody, but if you're great, for the first time in, I think, history, those players, by definition only, I don't know, what is it, Stephen, A, 5 or 6, it changes year to year, 4, 7, whatever it is, have now, it seems to me, the power of NBA superstars. Because those players can affect the fortunes of your team the way NBA stars can. And those players are looking at the NBA and thinking, yeah, that would be nice.
So you're saying it's good? Player empowerment
I'm saying
is good
it's
for the
good.
NFL?
I'm saying it's inevitable and good.
I don't think it's inevitable. I like it. I'm not averse to it. I would tell you that the more power players gain, the better. But I would tell you it's going to be few and far between. It's not the NBA, and it never will be. And everybody needs to get over that. The NBA, you've got 450-plus players. The National Football League, you got in excess of 1,696 players. When you take into account a 53-man roster, and when you consider that along with a hard salary cap and how that governs the league, there's a limited amount of power that any player is going to get. And more importantly than that, I think that what you have to pay attention to is the reality that the actions of a few can ultimately affect the many. You know, one of the things that I brought up on many, many occasions, Max, just so you know, years ago when LeBron James decided to take his talents to South Beach, what flew under the radar for years is what kind of problem it caused with the NBA owners and the players, because the kind of rules that they wanted to implement, reducing, the amount of basketball-related income. You know all about that. You know, once upon a time, it was 57% that the players had. It's down to 50%. You know, some owners wanted it as low as 47%. This is why they were locking out the players and what have you. A lot of it had to do with LeBron James and how he elected to handle his exit from Cleveland to South Beach. The Dan Gilberts of the world and others were behind the scenes raising holy hell about player movement and things of that nature. So some of these rules that you've seen injected into the equation was a byproduct of them being so turned off by the manner in which he elected to handle it, which I think is the lone blemish on his illustrious career. We transition to the National Football League, and what we find is a situation where you got a hard salary cap. You've got players that don't earn as much money as NBA players. You've got the very few that are marketable stars in the National Football League because you're wearing shoulder pads, helmets, your identity is disguised to some degree. And for the most part, the NFL is the one who chooses who should be marketed and who shouldn't in most situations. And so when you're playing in a league like that, and the only guaranteed dollars you have is basically with your signing bonus and what have you, there's a limited amount of power that you have. And the few that exercise it, Max, even though they could get away with it, you're just fomenting new ideas for the owners to come up to curtail you from gaining even more power, and that becomes more of a priority during negotiations. And even though those few individual players can get away with it, the collective whole could end up suffering because of it. And I just think that is something that we need to monitor moving forward. We love the players getting more power, but don't think for 1 second it won't come without a stiff price.
Real quick, same thing in the NBA. Yep, only a handful of players like our James Harden who can get exactly what they want, go where they want, also get their guaranteed dollars, all that. Same thing in the NFL. If Deion Sanders was in his prime in the NFL right now, he could do it a shutdown corner, Aaron Donald, someone like that, and maybe 5 or 6 quarterbacks. Everyone else, you're right. There are different tiers of players, and different influence. But the NFL is in a new day. That's what it looks like to me.
See.
Yeah. All right. We'll leave it there, guys. Hard out. When we come back, Kyrie Irving thinks.
This is Kobe Bryant. This is Jam Session coming at you.
81 points for Kobe.
Final seconds. Bryant for the win.
Are you made for this?
These are the type of moments that I live for.
You gotta show me.
5 rings. 5 of them. I told you was gonna get it, man.
You gotta show them.
Rest in peace, legend and Gianna. One day after posting on social media that he would like to see Kobe Bryant's silhouette replace Jerry West's silhouette as the NBA logo, Kyrie reaffirmed his stance. Speaking about it last night. Take a listen.
I think he deserves it. I think his family deserves it. I think we deserve it as seeing greatness personified as Mamba. This is excellence. Kobe Bryant, logo. Yes, needs to happen. I don't care what anyone says. Black Kings built the league. It's exactly what I meant. It's exactly where I stand.
Kyrie with a strong stance there. Kendrick Perkins joining us. Black Kings built the league. Facts. And Jerry West, guys, I want to mention, he's been the logo since '69. He's been asked about this in the past, and he's for the idea of it potentially changing as well. So he has greenlit that. I'll start with you, Stephen A. Do you think Kobe Bryant should be the NBA logo?
Hold on. What did you? Go ahead, Kendrick. What'd you say?
Yep.
Molly, what's going on? I'm trying to figure out what's going on today. Stephen, are you trying to make a fashion statement?
Oh, my bad. My earpiece fell out.
Dressed up like a pilgrim, like you auditioning for a Thanksgiving play at a local high school.
Well, listen. Oh my goodness! I'm not auditioning. Pilgrim. Where's
I'm not auditioning, but since you brought it up, I am in Hollywood. I mean, I do like the look. And oh, by the way, Molly and Max, I will be spending most of next week on the set of General Hospital. Brick has been summoned to Port Charles, so I just wanted to make sure. I just wanted to make sure everybody knew that.
When's Brick gonna have a love scene or actually murk somebody? Because that's when I'll tune in. We got to make those. We got to make those happen.
Brick in a love scene. I'm a mobster. But I mean,
I didn't know mobsters don't need love.
But mobsters need love too. I gotta speak to the executive producer Frank Valentini. I mean, I wouldn't mind doing the love scene. It would be nice. But anyway, let's move on. Here's the deal. I really respect where Kyrie's coming from. Like so many others, he clearly has a lot of love for Kobe Bryant. They had a personal relationship. Kobe loved him dearly as well. I get where he's coming from. I definitely think I wouldn't have a problem with Kobe Bryant being the logo. Please don't get me wrong. But when we talk about him being the number one choice, I got to admit, for years I've been on this tip, and I'm not about to change now, even with the unfortunate passing of my friend Kobe Bryant. I'm just of the mindset that silhouette should be Michael Jordan. I've always felt that way. Jerry West and I have spoken about this. Obviously, he has no problem with the silhouette being changed. He never asked to be the silhouette to begin with, in fairness to him. We all know that he was a great player and a champion as well. But Michael Jordan is Michael Jordan. And I think that when we talk about Kobe in comparisons to Michael Jordan, think about the conversation that we have about LeBron James. There is a debate as to whether or not LeBron James is the GOAT or MJ is the GOAT. The reason why Kobe Bryant's name was never in the equation was because of MJ. If it was not for MJ, we would have been saying LeBron or Kobe. So we know how great Kobe was, and there's no questioning that and what have you. It's just that Kobe Bryant playing the same position, whose game essentially mimicked that of Michael Jordan, even though I could argue he was a better shooter than MJ. In the end, when I think about what MJ accomplished, 6 trips to the NBA Finals, 6 NBA Finals MVP, 6-0 in the NBA Finals, undefeated throughout the 80s when he played a full season. The man was the 90s. The man was absolutely phenomenal. And then when you consider what he took from Magic and Bird in terms of elevating the NBA brand into a global brand and what he's meant, how he's already the silhouette for Nike and what have you. I just think that when you look at Michael Jordan, there's not a name in the modern era that I could put ahead of him. That's my only issue.
Well,
Kobe would be number 2 on that list. MJ would be number 1.
I've always felt the exact same way about Jordan. It should be the Jumpman logo. The thing is, Nike owns the Jumpman logo. So how does that work, right?
Don't use that logo.
So
use another,
but that's the iconic logo. You think of that logo when you that's the Jordan brand, right?
Yes.
I'll say this. When Kyrie says Black Kings built the league, he's not wrong, although you got to throw in Larry Bird. Black Kings and Larry Bird built the league. Larry Bird was bad. I agree. Bad brother. Anyway, the point is that I get the point. That the silhouette in a largely African-American league that was built largely by African-American players to the position it is now, and is obviously the most popular game in urban areas, why is it that a white guy is a silhouette? And Jerry West was a bad dude. He was the Kobe Bryant of his day. I mean, he averaged 30 points every year and was Mr. Clutch and was in the finals all the time, even if they weren't always winning it. Won an MVP on the losing team in the finals once because he was so gangster, Jerry West. The greatest executive ever. I get it. But I understand that sentiment. Wait a minute. Can we have at least the silhouette of an African-American player? And Jordan would be my first choice. I think I understand the sentiment for Kobe, especially from Kyrie, because Kobe was a mentor to Kyrie Irving. So Kyrie is standing up for his guy, but I do feel, as you do, Stephen A., that the admirable thing about Kobe was he looked at Jordan. The whole world wanted to be like Mike, but who would dare actually try? Kobe's like, I'm the same size as this dude, play the same position as this dude. I'm going to do him, but one better. Number 24. I'll do him, but one better. He didn't quite get there, but he basically did. He basically was the next Michael Jordan and was loved by a generation the way Jordan's generation loved him on the court. And so I understand Kyrie's sentiment.
Well, I'm going to say this, okay? The logo, the NBA logo is a symbol, okay? It's a damn representation. Kobe Bryant breathed, ate, and slept the game of basketball. It's no better representation than the Kobe Bryant logo. Mamba mentality. Think about it. Having that logo on these players' jerseys, socks, every night is a reminder of what they have to go out there and do every single night and leave it on the court because tomorrow is not promised. Kobe Bryant was an icon. Kobe Bryant set the tone. Kobe Bryant opened the doors for so many others. He was a mentor, and his life after basketball was starting to be better than probably his career on the court, and that's saying a lot. No former, no current player would object to Kobe Bryant being the logo, including Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan spoke at Kobe Bryant's funeral, and he said, when Kobe died, a piece of me died as well, right? So what I'm saying is, I'm with Kyrie on this. Let's honor this man. He deserved it. Put Kobe as the logo, and no one would have no complaints whatsoever. Mamba mentality.
Well, let me be very clear. I'm not trying to imply that anybody would have a complaint. Not anybody on this set right now. Certainly no one in the NBA community would complain if the NBA elected to go that route. So that's not the subject at hand, because none of us would sit up there and summarily dismiss or frown upon Kobe being the logo. But when you think about what MJ has meant to the sport spanning decades, and that the NBA ultimately became what it became because of Magic, Bird, and ultimately MJ. Now, we can't dismiss Bill Russell and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and their contributions to the game. We can never forget that. Rules will change, for crying out loud, because of Wilt Chamberlain, and we understand that. And we respect Elgin Baylor, and we respect the Jerry Westers of the world, the Oscar Robertsons. There's a lot of great iconic figures that have come associated with the game of basketball. But in terms of making the NBA the global brand that it is, Kobe would have never been Kobe, meaning the global iconic brand that he is, if it wasn't for what Magic and Bird initiated and MJ ultimately took to another level. So I agree where you're coming from, KP, and I understand that I'm not trying to say that you're wrong by any stretch of the imagination. And you're absolutely right. Michael Jordan would have no problem whatsoever, because like Jerry West, he's never asked to be the silhouette or anything like that. And he certainly wouldn't have any problem with Kobe being honored in such a way. I'm just saying, when we look at their contributions to the game of basketball, as phenomenally great as Kobe Bryant was, he wasn't MJ. And that's the difference. And that's why I say I would go with MJ as the silhouette.
And listen, I'm not disagreeing with you. Like I always said, before MJ got to the league, it was the circus, and I mean that in a good way. Magic Johnson, Isaiah Thomas, Bill Russell, Larry Bird. Michael Jordan came and it became Disneyland and Disney World, the magical rides and things to that nature. But one of the reasons that I give the slight edge to the late great Kobe Bryant is because of the tragedy that happened. And I feel like this will be a great way for us all to honor him and remember him on a night-to-night, day-to-day basis with his logo on the jersey and on the socks, and a friendly reminder to go out there and leave it all out on the court, because, again, tomorrow is not promised. It's not promised in the NBA, and it's not promised in life. So that's why I said Kobe Bryant. If he was still living, maybe I could have a whole nother argument. But because what happened to my great brother and what he meant to the game and so many others, this is why I'm giving him the slight edge.
On the one hand, Stephen A., I know what you mean. It seems silly that the logo for the NBA would be anyone other than Michael Jordan. On the other hand, for years it's been Jerry West, and at no time were people saying Jerry West is the greatest player of all time. Like, for whatever reason, the tradition of the logo of the NBA was not chosen based on, here is the greatest we've ever seen. He wasn't even the biggest championship winner. He won championships, but lost more than he won because of those great Celtics teams. He was a dynamic, all-time great in a big market, playing on a great team. But it was always a little curious to me that he was the logo. And so I think the precedent has been set that the logo doesn't have to be the Michael Jordan guy. That can be someone else.
That's totally fair, but I think that Kendrick Perkins' argument is far more profound from the standpoint that we lost Kobe. He's gone. And if you're talking about somebody, even though he will never be forgotten, never. But when you talk about him being the silhouette, and you're taking into account the fact that, the fatal helicopter crash took his life and that of his wonderful daughter and 7 others. When you take that into consideration and you talk about remembering him in that regard, I think that's the most profound argument that could be made. If he were alive, we would be having a different subject that leans more to my point about MJ. But the fact that he is gone, I hear exactly where Big Perk is coming from on that.
Yeah, and of course that Mamba mentality. It sounds like we're all in agreement that if not Kobe, it should be MJ, and that there should potentially be a change. All right, Kendrick, before we let you go, any parting shots before Stephen A. heads to Thanksgiving dinner?
Oh, no, I'm going to get him later. I'm going to get him later on Stephen A's world. Yeah, I'm going to get him later. But he might switch it up.
I don't know if I can handle being on Stephen A's world. I already live in Stephen A's world 24/7, 365.
Molly brings up Thanksgiving now. But at the top of the show, she was talking about how Fly was looking. I sense inconsistencies there, but that's all right.
Excuse me.
Okay.
No, first of all,
right.
Hold up. Okay. I said you look great. I said you look 20 years younger. I said I like LA Steve, and I'm into it. I'm sure I'm getting DMs about Molly's loving up on Stephen A. I already know.
Week.
But
wait till you see what I got in store for you next week.
That was just for Kendrick. Because Kendrick called you the Pilgrim, so I just wanted him to, finish it out. So that's where we are, okay? So I'm always consistent, all right, y'all? Consistent. We'll leave it there. All right, let's go to the NFL. The Cowboys have until March 9th to either sign Dak Prescott to a long-term deal or franchise tag him at a cost of $37.7 million this season. Here's our Dan Orlovsky on whether the Cowboys should pay that kind of money for Dak.
Do not pay good players great player money. Dak Prescott is a good player. If the Cowboys pay him $40 million a year, it would be a grave mistake. They need to look at a situation like the Rams or like the Philadelphia Eagles and go, uh-oh, can we learn from maybe paying a guy too much money, so to speak? Dak Prescott deserves good player money.
I missed the video of Dan watching Dan from earlier, but this will have to do. 2-time Super Bowl champ, our friend Rob Ninkovich in the building. Rob, good to see you. And I want to start with you here, Rob, because I already asked the guys this. Do you think Dak is worth $40 million a year?
No, I don't. I don't think he's worth 40. I mean, that's a lot of money. So you figure if you pay him 40, 20% of your cap is going to be dedicated to your quarterback. So you better pick every single draft pick perfectly, or else you're going to be in trouble.
Well, listen, here's the deal. It ain't about what you're worth. It's about what you can get. Let's remember that. Let's also remember that we're talking about the Dallas Cowboys here. Now, if I'm a teammate of Rob Ninkovich and I'm on the New England Patriots and we're winning Super Bowls, that's a very valid point. If I've been playing for the Dallas Cowboys for the last 25 years and I've got about 3 playoff victories to show for it in that span, and I the only thing I can catch is a cold. I can't get anything right. Can't get right, for crying out loud. That's my nickname. And that's what I've been saddled with for many, many years. And all I've got to fall back on are headlines playing in Jerry World's billion-dollar playpen, the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders, and a nation of delusional, nauseating fans that make you want to vomit every time you hear them talk about how about them Cowboys, as if there's something to cheer about when there ain't a damn thing to cheer about, okay? And if that's what I got to deal with, then all of a sudden he might be worth $40 million. Because what do you have? You paid other people. You paid Jalen Smith, you paid DeMarcus Lawrence, all right? You paid a bunch of other folks. You kept Sean Lee around with his injury-prone self, even though he's a gifted player when healthy. The bottom line is you tried a lot of different things, and a damn thing worked. Dak Prescott comes there. Even before that, Tony Romo was there, injury-prone. Dak Prescott's been there the last 4 years. Before this season, hadn't missed a game. Hadn't missed a single game. It was back page headlines when he missed a practice. He's reliable. He's trustworthy. He's a model citizen. He's won 42. He's got a 42-27 record as a starter. He's got a career completion percentage of over 65%. He's gotten you to the playoffs twice. He's won a playoff game, and your team stunk without him. So all of those things taken into consideration, do I think on its face he's worth $40 million as an individual talent when you consider the fact that Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, and others are getting less? No, I don't believe that. But if you're the Cowboys, and what's your alternative plans? Andy Dalton or Lord knows who else? I'm sorry. I think he does warrant that because of what you're asking him to represent as a face of that franchise. Yeah.
Well, Dan said he doesn't deserve to be the highest paid player in the league. And to quote Clint Eastwood from Unforgiven, deserves got nothing to do with it. The fact of the matter is, several years ago, it would have been a mistake. Last year, and I did not like the Goff contract at the time. I did not like the Wentz contract at the time. I think just because the market's irrational in terms of how much they value the quarterback doesn't mean that you have to follow suit if you don't have a truly great quarterback. And they're only, by definition, a handful on the far right end of the bell curve, right? You have Patrick Mahomes. You have Aaron Rodgers. Tom Brady just showed you still have Tom Brady, Deshaun Watson, Russell Wilson, maybe 1 or 2 others. That's it. Those are the guys worth top of the market. And even then, you got to be careful how much you pay them because there's just not enough money to go around. That's why there's a hard cap. Because every time you see a hard cap, it ain't about competitive balance. That's a lie that the owners peddle to the fans. It's only ever about, in every sport, funneling money from players to the owners. So players have to make choices. Well, do I want to be on a winner or do I want to get paid? Or I'm going to have to get paid a little less to be on a winner. But understand that's the reality. And if you pay a good player great money, you're handcuffing yourself. But here's the thing, Rob, and this is why I disagree right now, why you're going to have to give him the money, the $40 million a year. 3 things happened throughout the course of this negotiation. 1, Andy Dalton wasn't nearly as good as Dak. You think Andy Dalton's a good backup. Wow, it's a good backup. Dak's not that good, really. He's not, No, actually, that was a huge fall off. That makes Dak look even better. 2, the NFC East, there's no quarterback in the division. So there's a very good chance you sign Dak and you have a home playoff game for the foreseeable future. You've really tilted the scale in your favor. You're going to host a playoff game, unless big things change in the NFC East. You should have a huge advantage, at least, going into each season with a chance to host a playoff game because the division's weak and there are no other quarterbacks. And 3, they franchise tagged him, Rob. They franchise tagged him. $37 million they're going to owe him. Next year it's 53 or 4. So at this point in the game, Jerry lost the negotiation. It's over. He's already lost. It's just an issue of when he's going to sign up. Because what else can he do? Next year, if Dak walks, there'll be enough quarterback-starved teams that he's going to get his close to $40 million a year anyway. And if he doesn't, what, are you going to franchise him again? $53, $54 million? All against the cap in that year? You can't prorate it like you can with a signing bonus? No. They've lost this negotiation already. My prediction is Dak will sign a 3-year deal right around $120 million.
So, look, when I hear you guys talk it, I get it. I get it. I mean, look, the Cowboys screwed this up, and Jerry Jones, he really screwed this whole thing up. But when you talk about the value and evaluating a quarterback, I mean, Kirk Cousins is the highest paid quarterback or has made the most of any quarterback in the last 3 years. And, like, is he a great quarterback? Is he the best quarterback for the Vikings? I don't know about that. So, you know, you look at these teams, if you pay him $40 million a year, look at Seattle. Russell Wilson, prime example. When he was on his rookie contract, they made it to the Super Bowl. They won a Super Bowl. They pay Russell Wilson. They have to cut a bunch of guys on defense. And he's complaining because their offensive line isn't that great. Well, it's probably because you're one of the highest paid quarterbacks in the league. And if you were making a lot less, they could spread that money around. So if you're Dak, he has to make a decision. Do I want to be the highest paid quarterback, or do I want to go somewhere and win and compete for a Super Bowl championship? Because if you're the highest paid quarterback, you're making $40 million a year, they're not going to be right on every single draft pick. They're not. And they're going to have to cut one of your key guys. They're going to have to cut somebody that's making a lot of money. So I think the cap's at what, 180?
It's not coincidence, I think, Rob, to your point, that Tom Brady has all those Super Bowl rings, and he's the guy who always restructured and took less than he would have gotten on the market and was reasonable about that. But in Dak's position, as Stephen A. might point out, why would you trust the Cowboys to field a Super Bowl team even if you took less? What would give you confidence that they would get that right? You might as well get paid.
Yeah. Tom Brady was also married is also married to Gisele Bündchen, who's worth more than him.
You gotta take that out of the picture. I mean, I hate when people say that, though. When you say, "Oh, well, you're married to somebody that makes a lot of money."
Because when you're talking about when you're talking about somebody's net worth and your money, Rob, I mean, that's what it is for them at home. They'd be multimillionaires regardless. I mean, so you're talking about somebody like Dak that doesn't have a big bank account to sit on. It's different for different people. So he already has that cushion no matter what. Their home situations are different. It does matter. It's pertinent. That's what their life is behind closed doors.
When you're worth $200 million, what's the difference between $400 million? I mean, look, 100 millionaires are worth $100 million. I mean, I don't know. What's your way of life? Is it, I'm going to ride on a different jet or a private jet? Like, I'm going to wear different clothes? No, I mean, but along the way, he's made the money. And when you win Super Bowls, guess what? The money follows you. So everything else that he does, he makes money on.
Yeah, I think Rob's point, Molly, is that if you're a quarterback and you're going to get $100 million guaranteed, what's the difference between 100 and 110? In other words, like, if you can be reasonable on the extreme end, maybe you can give your team a little breathing room. I just don't think the Cowboys have shown that they'll put that money to good use.
Hold on, y'all are being a bit too scientific.
People should get what they deserve, but then That's right. If you say people should get what they deserve, then you can't look at what the wife is making.
Rob, here's the bottom line. Here's the bottom line, because people are being a bit too scientific with all this. At the end of the day, Molly, it's this. You go to work every day. Regardless of what your spouse does, the bottom line is you know what you have earned. You know what work you've put in, and you want that validated by the people who employ you, regardless of what your spouse has at their
disposal. Especially if your spouse is making all that money.
Of course, but you guys, we're bringing up somebody that notoriously is taking pay cuts and has a different situation than most people. So
but it's his choice.
I don't think we can say
it's his choice. It's his choice. Like him taking a pay cut. Him taking a pay cut is entirely different than somebody saying he doesn't deserve it. That's the point.
All right, we got to go. I could keep going on this, but Rob, thank you so much for being with us. Appreciate you. Today's the last day, guys, that we'll be on air for Black History Month. So I want to give a big thank you to all the schools.